Born in 1962, I grew up with 2 sisters and 3 brothers. My father was in the Air Force, so from the age of 5 to 9, we lived in Japan, at Misawa Air Base. Then we moved to Malmstrom Air Base in Montana. We lived there for about 5 years. I can consider my childhood to have been interesting and wonderful in too many ways to list. We were raised and taught to function in society and were able to flourish in many ways. When my family moved to Oregon, life was also good. I made it to adulthood with no mommy or daddy issues. In my teen years, I ran with a pretty rough crowd. Since this was in the 70s, I was led to sampling almost every mind-altering substance around. I really liked a few, but none of these experiences even began to resemble an addiction. I did, however, have a peculiar fondness for alcohol. Beers and shots became an almost everyday thing from 21 on. I was married at 24 to a wonderful lady, and we raised a son and daughter in a hectic house full of football players, silly girls, and at least 2 dogs. After 24 years with some really good and a few bad years, we divorced. Up until I was 46, I was an alcoholic that functioned reasonably well. Somewhere in there, I became more and more apathetic about the consequences of my foolishness, which included very little concern for others and even the needs of my family. When I wasn't drinking, I was thinking about my next drink and what additional drug was available to experiment with or use to get me to the messed up level I desired. After my divorce at 48, I spent most of my life with good time buddies, the bar crowd, or with one of a few girlfriends who, on reflection, was always the result of the worst decision-making ever. This all led to my second divorce and a mind-altering head injury that included a 5-day coma. On a drunken night with my second wife, I fell and smashed my head really bad. What actually happened is unclear, but I had been left to die in the street. I spent 7 days in the hospital, 5 in a coma. When I was released, I felt as if I was in a fog for a long time. Dwelling on the unpleasantness that was my life for the next 10 years serves no purpose, so I will not. Later during this time, I befriended a good Christian man named Joel. I helped him with several of his projects, was paid some, and we talked quite a bit. Joel had suffered a serious head injury also, so we commiserated on our difficulties there. I learned tolerance for his craziness, and he dealt with mine. On many occasions, Joel would suggest that giving myself to God and learning of his will could help me in so many ways. After a really rough couple of months, I was finally convinced that I had to change my life, including my faith in the Lord and my understanding about how God would help me. One day when the trouble in my life was really bearing down on me, Joel saw how dismayed I was about everything, and he basically forced me to join him in a simple prayer. Surprisingly, lightning did not strike me down. And I started to make the calls I needed to so I could detox and get into another treatment program. That first prayer with Joel led me to praying each morning and simply asking for help during especially trying times. Suddenly things began to fall into place. I could see that my prayers and efforts were going to help me. After one of many relapses, I feel that I was being led to begin what is hopefully the start of my new life. As I complete the New Life Fellowship program, I confidently look forward to knowing the Lord is with me and He will continue to guide me. Psalm 91 verse 2 seems appropriate here. I will say to the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. In my distant and recent past, I sometimes lived a life of despair and regret. I now see that as I continue to hit those nasty obstacles in my life, my faith in God and a little patience will allow me to navigate through whatever is thrown at me and be at the very least okay in the end.